It's Wednesday, September 25th, 2019, and this is the Product Mentor Talk. Today, we're joined by one of our mentors, Scott Levy, Director of Product over at Electric, who's going to be leading an amazing talk on the art of prioritization today. So just let me briefly explain the format for you today. We have different mentors from the Product Mentor program come through and give these great talks on different areas of their expertise in product management. The Product Mentor program pairs up mentors and mentees in the field of product management all around the world for basically one-on-one sessions. They last about 6 months. We do 2 a year. And we just have a lot of great mentors, and Scott is one of them. And me, just a little bit about me. I am Jeremy Horn, aka the Product Guy, located here in New York City, and I'm going to be moderating today's talk. But with all that said, let me hand it over to Scott, our speaker today.
Thanks, Jeremy. So let me go ahead and share my screen. So, like Jeremy said, my name is Scott Levy. I'm the Director of Product at a startup here in New York City called Electric. And I'm going to talk about the art of prioritization, how to prioritize, justify prioritizations, and say no politely to stakeholders. So first thing, as a product manager, you're constantly inundated with information from different parts of the organization. You have asks from your CEO to your customers, execs, sales team, customer success, all parts of the organization. And this can be quite overwhelming, right? Sometimes you may even find yourself looking like one of these images. All these pieces of data are flooding in, and it's hard to make sense of it and even start and figure out, well, how should I be taking all of these pieces of information and how should I be ranking them? And what are the things that we should be working on? And a lot of times that could lead to anxiety, analysis paralysis. It can get you stuck in a place where you're not actually delivering, but you're just constantly thinking about what we should be delivering and worrying about what it is that we should actually start building. Now, how do I prioritize? Now, when I think about prioritization, I really think about focusing on the impact. And the way you can do that is by aligning your roadmap and the things that you want to build with the business goals. So as an example, one of the goals that you may have is the idea to reduce churn by 30% in Q1. And this may be an overall business goal that by the time you get to the end of the year, you may want to see churn is significantly lower than it is today. So how are you going to get there? Well, in Q1, what we're going to do is we're going to release features that are going to help us keep customers on our platform longer, which may mean that they're engaging with us more often. They're finding more value out of their platform, and thus we're reducing the churn rate. You also want to follow the vision, right? What is the vision of the organization? What is that CEO's vision? Where are you heading, not just in the next 6 months, but in 5 years from now? And making sure that everything you're building is not just focused on the short term and what are solving problems today, but what is going to solve problems for the future. You really want to make sure that you're getting your exec team and especially your CEO, if you have a younger company, involved in the process to understand where he or she is thinking about going with the organization. You also want to make sure that you're building for your ideal customer profile. And this is something really important and something that we really focus on here at Electric is who are we building the product for? Now, being a early stage company, you get a lot of customers in the beginning, and you kind of go through the process of figuring out who's the right customer, who's the wrong customer. And you want to make sure you build for that right customer, right? And you may have to go through a series of exercises, including with the exec team, with management, with different parts of the organization to try and identify who that ideal customer profile is. But it's really important to make sure that once you've identified them, you identify what will have the biggest impact for them and focus on building for them because those are the customers you want to go after and those are the customers you want to keep. The other important thing is to what I call measure twice and cut once, which is constantly thinking about how are we going to measure success, right? What are the ways that we can improve and show improvement to those metrics I talked about earlier? So it's not just, hey, we're going to build feature Y. It should be more focused on, well, we want to impact feature Y. And if we may not have the ability to measure it today, what are the things we need to build to measure it? And if you don't have the ways to measure it, really focusing on building those ways first, so that once you do build that feature that will enhance that metric, you can ultimately validate and say with confidence, we did move that metric. And again, if you can't measure, start there. Now, what's that smell? Now, something that I get asked is, well, how do I know I've done it wrong? So not asking how do I know if I've done it right, but what's that smell test? How do I know if I'm on the right track or on the wrong track? One important thing is stakeholders aren't bought in. If you find that stakeholders are constantly wondering what's on the roadmap, how was a prioritization decision made, how did we determine what feature to build, you're not bringing your stakeholders in, and as a result, they may feel a little betrayed. They may feel like they're left out of the process. They feel like they're not contributing, which is going to stifle communication and stifle collaboration. And you really want to make sure that you bring them in. So if you find that stakeholders don't have an idea of prioritization, what's on the roadmap and what the order is, and they don't have a say in it, that's a sign you may not be working on the right stuff, right? You want to bring people in often and early to make sure that what they're hearing from the market and from customers aligns with the priorities that you're building. The next thing is you can't justify the why. So as a product person, right, we love to come up with ideas. We love to be that creative thinker, think outside the box, really push the envelope. But we have to remember that, we're building a business, and building a business means that we can justify the why, right? We can see a return on investment. When we're building features, we're spending resources, and the outcome is some enhancement for our customers, which is an enhancement for the business. So it's really important that if you can't justify the why, that's another sign that, well, you may not be prioritizing the right way. And you really want to get back to, why are we building this thing? What is the impact, again, to those items we talked about in the last slide? Ideal customers aren't buying. So one of the things that we talked about, right, is building for your ideal customer profile. If you find that customers aren't buying the product that you have based on the feature set, or if you find that ideal customers aren't using the things you're releasing, that's another sign that what you're building and prioritizing may not be the most impactful, right? So you really want to focus on who are my ideal customers and what will have the biggest impact to them. What will have them engaging with the platform more? What will have them using it more? What will have them purchasing more? And you could tie that back to revenue. And then the expected impact does not actually equal the actual impact. So thinking about to those metrics, right? When you create a roadmap and prioritize, you want to think about what is the expected impact. So going back to that example about reducing churn, if we want to reduce churn by 30% and we release a feature that we think is going to do that, the actual impact is reducing it by 1%. Well, maybe we didn't prioritize necessarily the right way, at least this feature, right? Maybe there was another feature that could have had a bigger impact. And you're never going to have it perfect, the expected of the actual impact, but you want them to be close. If they're not close, you'll learn from that and you'll figure out what you're doing wrong and you'll get better next time. But you want to make sure that the expected impact is somewhat close to the actual impact. And that shows that you're really prioritizing the right things that are having the right impact to the business. And lastly, the features aren't in line with the business objectives and priorities. So this is another one, right? Everything you're building really has to contribute to where the business is heading, and you want to make sure you're in lockstep with that. So if everything you're building is actually going against, the objectives for the business, that says something, right? And you want to make sure that you reevaluate how the product objectives ultimately roll up to the business objectives. Going back to the example about reducing churn, right? If that is a big objective for the organization and you're building a feature that's going to help contribute to growing revenue, well, those things don't work together, right? And you want to make sure that whatever it is that product is working on ultimately rolls up to the business. Now you've built the prioritization, but how do you ultimately justify it, right? And your opinion matters, but really facts can't be disputed. Everyone has an opinion. As a product manager, you're constantly dealing with opinions from different parts of the organizations, and you want to have one as well. But you are in that room, you are a product manager because you're the one who's absorbing all that knowledge, that information, those opinions, that data, and then ultimately spitting out a prioritization. So you really have to look at the data. And like I say, the proof is in the pudding. It's in the data, right? So what you want to use is both qualitative and quantitative data in order to justify that. Now, something that we had at Electric was when it came to prioritization in the early stages, we spent time around when we were a seed stage company, really doing things based on a gut feeling. And that's because really in the early days, what we found was we didn't have a lot of data, right? We were a new company. And at that point in a seed stage, you really trust your gut. You work collaboratively with the small team. And you want to fail fast. And, as a organization grows, your dependence on that gut feeling starts to slowly go away. What you find is that you are relying more and more on data, both quantitatively and qualitatively. So qualitatively can be customer interviews, conversations that account management has, conversation that your support desk has, conversation that sales has, and being able to collect all that data in a way that allows you to then present that back to the team and say, well, we're going to work on this thing, and it's in this order because we can associate it with these different pieces of feedback that we got from customers. Now, something that we use here at Electric is we use a tool called Product Board. And the way that we've set it up is each different department has a email address that they can email feedback to. That email could be a forwarding from a customer. That could be just a quick email that a sales team member put together. That could be a email from exchange between prospects. And that email then gets automatically put into Product Board, is what they like to call a insight. From there, the team goes in, each product manager goes in, looks at the different insights and tags them, and is able to tag that to a problem statement. Now, if a problem statement doesn't exist for a particular insight, we'll create that. And over time, what we are able to do is actually associate a problem statement to a set of data that can then be produced on a quarterly basis when we look at our quarterly roadmap. And we can show real impact and real data on how this problem statement or this prioritization or this roadmap item has an impact to the business. And that's a really important thing because that allows product to control the narrative, to be the owners, to really say, we know you have an opinion. We know that you have an opinion, but when we quantify all of that, here's what the data is telling us. And that's really important. You want to be able to relate the roadmap to the business outcomes, right? So taking that data and not just focusing on a feature because it's cool or something, it's a little funky, but really that it has a direct impact to those business outcomes, right? There's always time for being able to build something cool and that will really wow the customer, but it's got to come back to how does it really move the business and how does it relate to that business outcome. Another important thing is educating them on the why, not the what. Something we do here at Electric is our roadmaps are all thematic based. We really don't focus on the features, the what. We focus on the why. Why are we building these things? So as an example, instead of saying we're going to build a reporting dashboard, what we're saying is we want to increase user engagement by X%. Now, how we do that, it could be a lot of things. But the important thing is not to get caught in the what, but really focus on the why we're doing it. And if you can educate the team on the why and show them the why, it's a lot easier for them to understand over the what. And then finally, listen and capture feedback from stakeholders. As you're having these meetings and you're justifying the prioritization, make sure you have an open mind, right? No matter all the research you've done, people still do have opinions, and you have to be able to accept that with open arms. And even if their opinion you don't necessarily agree with, healthy debate is always encouraged, at least here at Electric. But what I recommend is having an open mind capturing that. And even if you're not working on it immediately, being able to put something in the backlog just so you can keep those communication channels open and have a really good relationship with other departments in the organization. Now, how do you validate? You've justified, you've gotten the budget, you're now building. So how do you validate that the thing you did actually did the thing you wanted to? Well, what I mentioned earlier is measure everything. So the most important thing was, did you move the thing you wanted to? And you really want to focus on that, right? When you're building, making sure that you're able to, at the end of it, get up in front of folks at an all hands and say, we released this feature, but not only that, we ended up being able to reduce churn for this quarter by 40%, right? And that's really powerful. I like to compare releasing a feature to having a child, in that when you have a child, you don't just celebrate, hey, we have a child, and then you move on to the next child. Like, you have to build and grow that baby and help it succeed in the world. And, you really want to focus on the successes that child is having, right? The A's it's having in school, the growth, and how it's living its life. And you could say the same thing about a product, right? Or a feature. It's one thing to get it out into the market, but it's really, how did it perform and how can you continue to improve it? The most important thing is using metrics to validate success failure. Again, opinions are great, but numbers speak for themselves. When you can get up in front of a room and be able to point to those metrics and say, hey, we're successful because of this, or we were failure because of this, that's really powerful. And something we like to do at Electric is, depending on the feature, it's usually 30 days after the quarter, we'll go through with the executive management team and go through everything that we released and go through the impacts it had on those metrics, and be able to say, was this a success? Yes. Okay. And what about this next one? Was that a success? If no, why was that a failure? Where did we go wrong and what can we do better? That's kind of the idea of failing fast, right? It's not that you want to fail, but if you're going to fail, let's do it quickly and let's make sure we learn from it. So it's really important that we fail fast, but we learn faster. And in that way, we can continue to iterate on the product. So for us, we'll do that cadence with the management and exec team, but we'll also get up at all hands, which is once every 2 weeks, and make sure to share with them any metrics that we find will really get the team excited. We tend to stay away from celebrating feature releases as an organization. That is exciting, but again, it's really celebrating how the feature impacted our customers and our business. Don't give up. I think that's really focusing on failing fast, right? You may not always feel great about failing, but the important thing is not to look at it as a binary of succeed, fail. It's looking at everything as a hypothesis, and being able to evaluate the results of your test, if you will, and evaluate if you could have done better, or if this test, ultimately validated that there wasn't a need, and it's a success. We've had instances in the past where we spent time building a feature set for customers. It was a set of slash commands that our customers could use in Slack. And what we found was that customers actually didn't like using slash commands. They felt that they had to remember their library of commands. And for our business, which is primarily driven through engagement in Slack, through real-time communication, we wanted customers to have a good experience. So it was really hard for us to say, okay, this feature is not the thing that we need, and we're going to move on. It was really important for us to not be too invested in that. And you could see that based on the usage data of that feature set against how customers used to interact with us. So by getting those metrics, we were able to see that usage did drop as a result of this feature set. And we learned, and we were able to pull that feature out quickly, and move on. And we've actually repurposed that feature set for our internal team, which has boosted their productivity, which has been a great thing. And again, just learn fast and iterate and be comfortable with failure. So conclusion, just to wrap it up, really important to focus on impact, not features, focusing on the why you're doing things, how it's impacting the business, how it's driving the vision. Really important to involve stakeholders, make sure that there's visibility amongst all stakeholders, that opinions are heard and captured, that you're able to close that feedback loop once they've given the feedback. Justify with data and make sure that you have the metrics set up in place so that you can look back and say something was a success or failure. And if you don't have those things in place, that's okay. Make sure to build for the ability to measure those things first. Report frequently and often. Try to be as communicative as possible. I find it's better to over communicate than under communicate. So being able to report frequently on how you're doing, especially to the whole organization, to get them excited and see how product is impacting the business. Celebrate success, right? And acknowledge failure. Just because you fail doesn't mean it's a bad thing, as long as you learn from it. We here at Electric, we do a lot of learning quickly, failing quickly. The most important thing, though, is that if we fail, there has to be a takeaway and a way that we are learning to be better. That's all I have for today. I'll hand it back over to Jeremy.
Awesome. Great job, Scott. I'd like to thank today's speaker for really a lot of great advice on prioritization. I know a lot of people are going to get a lot out of that. And also, as always, our presentation will be posted on our SlideShare channel. And a big thank you from me, Jeremy Horn, aka the Product Guy, and a big thank you to everyone else who joined us today and the Product Mentor. Also, don't forget, if you're interested in being a product mentor to like today's speaker, like Scott, to product people all around the world, then please sign up. Go to theproductmentor.com and sign up today. Also, if you're looking to fill a great product job with a great product person, visit our very own free for all job board at theproductjobs.com. And finally, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys all next time. Thanks. Bye.